Hello everybody, CritCrab here with another story from our very own subreddit about a DM that tried to use OP's sick wife to get OP to fall in love with him. Roll post. So, I served in the military for about 7 years right out of high school until I decided I want to get out and pursue a medical career and go to college. Around this time, I was introduced to D&D, something I had been interested in for a long time, but the cards never fell right for me to play. After a few games falling apart for various IRL reasons, I finally get invited to play in a game with a friend of mine who was also a fellow vet, and recently had gotten back into D&D from 3.5e. For the story, I'll just refer to him as John. The players are John's wife, with whom he had an open relationship with, and not always with other women, as a gnome sorcerer. Me as a Hexblade Warlock, and 2 new players who are great, but not really relevant to the story. I created a custom patron for my Hexblade that was basically homage to my wife, but not in a cringe way. Essentially, I had it so she was a family patron and used to love one of my ancestors, and we all took Hexblade Oath once we hit adventuring age. The DM takes all of our backstories and says that he's going to use them to craft a campaign using them so we can feel like we're actually heroes. Little did I know, he's only going to be using mine. In the real world, John and his wife had met up with me and mine a few times to hang out, as adults do when they want to make a couple friends. My wife especially has a hard time since she has end-stage liver failure and is awaiting a transplant. There were a few scares up until this point that I thought I would lose her. Keep this in mind as it becomes relevant later. Once we got done hanging out, my wife told me the second I would leave, John would make comments about how much he liked me, wanted to be closer to me, and asked my wife on how he could do that. Weird, I thought, but he is sort of an awkward guy, so I figured he just wanted a friend and wasn't sure how to go about it. My wife then begins to make jokes about how he has a crush on me and wants me for himself. We laugh it off, but as it turns out, my wife hit the nail right on the head. Once we do the obligatory goblin kill quest story, essential things begin to happen. I notice they have a lot to do with the Shadowfell, where my patron resides, so I think, cool. I guess he's using my story first and will tie in the others. Wrong. After a few sessions, I had amassed an unusual amount of magic items for what was a level 3 PC. Now, I did my best to try and give them away to my party, but I could tell that favoritism towards me was going on, and if I could see it, I'm willing to bet the other players did too. I pulled the DM aside and let him know he maybe was focusing on me too much, and while I appreciated it, I wanted the new players to have fun too, since this was their first experience. He assured me he didn't mean to do it and that he would fix it. The next session, he gave them both an oddly specific item and moved on. Business as usual with no changes. Until our next session. The beginning of what ended up being our last session started off weird. I came to our meeting place and he was on the phone, looking nervous the second he saw me. His wife showed up separate from him and he quickly pulled her aside to talk with her. No problem, I thought. Maybe she'll be getting some spotlight this session. Then she proceeds to sit next to me, in between me and John, which was unusual since John almost always had to sit right next to me. Fast forward to us in the Shadowfell in a tower trying to find my patron so we can ask some questions about the weird going-ons in the world. We get pretty close, but figure we would save our encounter with my patron until next session. I get home, and all hell breaks loose. I come in to find my wife crying. She tells me that John had called her before the session and asked her to be on the phone and to play my patron. She agreed since she thought it would be a cool way to be involved in D&D with me, and she knew that my patron was an homage to her. She was excited until the day of when he sent her the script and what would happen. In his version of events, she would be dying from a sickness and would basically transfer her powers to me so that I could continue to be a Hexblade, making me my own patron somehow. Now, my wife's illness was a normal topic for us since everyone would be asking how she was and her status, etc. So it's not as if this was a slip-up on his part. My wife told him, unknown to me as I was on my way to the session, that she wouldn't do it and said that he was insensitive and that it was fucked up what he did. Turns out, that was the phone call he got when I showed up. It also explained why he was so nervous whenever I'd look at my phone during the session. I immediately called him but got no answer, so I messaged him asking him what his problem was and how he could think what he did was a good idea. He gave excuse after excuse saying he forgot about it or didn't think about it that way. Following my outrage, he posts into our Discord group that our sessions are done and he was quitting D&D with no real explanation before leaving the group. Never heard from him again, and I hope to never see him again. End post. Well, this was, for lack of a better word, disturbing. Letting OP's wife roleplay the patron who is clearly tribute to her? Good idea. Excellent idea given that all parties are comfortable with it, and it definitely seems that they were. Taking it up several notches and including real-life stresses in a game that is regularly played to take a break from said stresses without asking anyone else, even the parties involved, how they feel about it, is immature and sad. This attempt at taking the game to a whole new narrative height is beyond low. Thank you so much to the White Fox for sharing this story. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more stories just like this one. Till next time.